Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We have an exciting topic today. We're going to be covering controlling SAP transports from Jira, how to go Agile with SAP. My name is Steve Oken. I'm the president of CoreALM. I will be introducing my guest a little bit later. His name is Sajith Kanoff, and Sajith is an ALM architect here at CoreALM as well, and he heads up our product development team offshore. So let's get into it. Before we get started, I'm going to give you a bit of a walkthrough on who we are as CoreALM and what we are going to be discussing in today's topic, and just a little bit of a point of view on what it is, what problems we are trying to solve. Hopefully this resonates with you. If you do have questions, please use the chat function, or you can use the Q&A to put your questions in, and we will make sure to cover those during today's webinar. All right, so quickly, just to give an overview, sorry about that. CoreALM's been in business for about 15 years. The company was started at that time when our CEO and founder left his position as the head of the ALM practice at SAP. So as many of our team has, Labanat, our founder, worked at SAP before joining CoreALM or starting CoreALM for him. And, so the reason why he started CoreALM is because, in the landscape for application lifecycle management, specifically for SAP customers, there was really nobody out there that was solving those problems for SAP customers. And he saw a lot of need. So started CoreALM to provide those types of services. It's about 2018 when he realized that, of course, people that use SAP have other applications in their landscape. And for those other applications, they use other tools like Jira, Azure DevOps, ServiceNow, and wanted to, find a way to, deliver the best of both worlds, taking advantage of SAP Solution Manager, which was available at the time. Now we have SAP Cloud ALM, and building integrations between those applications and Jira, Azure DevOps, ServiceNow. And that's really when we kind of launched into the software realm. And really that's been the pivotal change that has allowed us to continue to expand in this field and solve problems for our customers. And we have served many very large customers, companies that have very stringent requirements, whether it's, financial systems, we're really across industries, covers pharmaceuticals, life sciences, Minister of Defense, like all kinds of, applications that require a lot of compliance requirements, certification, high security. And so we have very high standards when it comes to that, as well as very just large volumes for very large scale manufacturers. So we've been sort of tried, tested, and true. Many of these companies have used our services for a very long time and are continuing to get value from those systems. Let's talk a little bit in terms of business transformations. What do we provide, and what is our real business transformation suite? So at CoreALM, we really see the business transformation process as a continuous improvement cycle. So it involves multiple innovation cycles where, in each cycle, you start with a goal of what you're trying to do from a process perspective, looking at improvements to your overall process using SAP and your connected systems. And then, it may be that you're doing a small project. It could be that you're doing a major business transformation, like a greenfield move to S4. Could just be a system upgrade or even small maintenance changes. And you kind of want to run those like a project, but it's always important to start from what is the business objective that we're trying to create. And then you can move from there into deployment and then ongoing operations. So once you go live, you want to make sure that those the goals that you set for yourself from a business perspective are actually being achieved. And that can be done through business process monitoring and other tools that will allow you to make sure that the users are getting the best value from the changes that you make. And then, of course, you can use that information to gather and actually start your next round of changes. So that's why it's a continuous loop, because each time you make changes, you want to collect up data and make sure that you have the ability to kind of move that forward. What we see is that our customers that see this as an end-to-end connected process are the ones that really get the most value from these tools. This is going to become increasingly important because there are many tools that get involved in these processes, and those tools have access to different data. So making sure those tools are connected and have a consistent view is what's critically important. And this will become more and more important as AI takes a more predominant role, because AI will probably tend to help us focus in the long run. In the short term, maybe help us automate the process of deployments and even managing projects. In the long run, and some people are getting benefits from this now, helping us to identify opportunities for process improvements. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But so the more these processes are interconnected, the better you'll be able to take advantage of those new capabilities. All right, so what does the landscape look like for this? There's quite a few different steps. This is a summarized view of the kind of steps along the way, the different capabilities that you need from an application lifecycle management process to be able to deliver the types of services that you need in order to create fast, continuous innovation cycles. And of course, for each of those capabilities, there's many different tools on the landscape that support this, and this is only a handful of those. Some of them come from SAP, such as SAP Cloud ALM and LeanIX, Ignavio. Those are SAP selected tools for those areas, as well as Tricentis for automated testing. But then there's also enterprise-wide tools like Jira, ServiceNow, Azure DevOps that all play in a slightly different space. And so the goal is really, to make sure that there's a path forward that manages your applications across SAP and non-SAP in a consistent way. And this is what's very, very challenging. And we get asked a lot of questions about this because, many people see the capabilities, let's say, of Cloud ALM and the data that they're continuing to store in Jira, Azure DevOps for their projects, for instance. And there's quite a lot of overlap between those tools. So the real question is, how do I create a workflow that puts everything into one continuous flow so that everything really just makes sense? And really, that's what CoreALM's mission is to create that unification layer that brings together all of these different tools and provides you one continuous process for managing your projects and your changes for all of your continuous innovation cycles. And the goal would be to, by bringing things together, you have better collaboration, less silo-driven kind of, project changes or implementations, and make it a more collaborative, holistic team that covers SAP and non-SAP, and very efficient use of tools so that people have access and visibility to the latest, greatest information all in one place. So that's really our mission. We cover that with a number of suite of products. We have products that support the legacy solution manager products using connectors to Jira, Azure DevOps, ServiceNow. We also have Cloud ALM connectors, and that covers a lot of additional capabilities for the newer way of doing things within SAP Cloud ALM implementations, as well as operations. And then the newest will be what we're covering for today is really that direct management of transports. How can we actually use Jira to directly control transports? I don't need Charm, there's no dependency on Solution Manager, but I have the robust capabilities to do transport management, which are in some cases a little bit lacking in the Cloud ALM implementation today. Eventually those features will exist, but today they do not. So we can provide those direct management of transports capabilities directly from Jira or Azure DevOps and ServiceNow. We're going to be focused on Jira today. Let's talk a little bit about what this looks like in practice. So, a typical issue type could be a user story in Jira, could have, 3 different states of to do, in progress, and done. So there are different ways that this can be mapped in, if you want to make changes to take advantage of additional states that you can use to trigger automations or, improve the flow and the control of actions that happen with SAP transports behind the scenes. It is possible to add additional states to some of your issue types in Jira. And those issue types could then be used to further control what capabilities are done. In fact, you could even use those states to drive automations in your process. And this would be kind of moving towards more of a fully agile or almost like a DevOps style of work. where you basically shift left as much as you can. When I say shift left, that means start earlier to do the types of things that would be validating or automating any of the checks that you can run on a particular change, so that you know that that change is actually not going to be disruptive, and you cover off all your risks before you release it. So this will, improve your, accelerate your speed of releasing those types of changes. So let's go through what some of those could look like. So when you start off a work item and you create those changes, by the time you get it to the point of ready to be tested, you have the ability to automatically trigger additional automations. So that could be, I want to run code quality analysis or vulnerability checks on my code to make sure that there's no issue associated with the code that I'm doing. I may also want to take my ABAP code and I want to move it to a centralized GitHub repository, so I have the ability to integrate with that. I can also make sure that if I have multiple parallel landscapes, that I'm not making changes to objects that are already being updated in another parallel landscape. So that's the cross-system object locking capability, and that is kind of automated within our platform. We also have sequencing checks similar to what you would have in Charm. This is no dependency on Charm, but it's the same capabilities of Charm built directly into Jira to do transport sequence checks, cross-reference checks to make sure that you don't have missing objects in your code that you're going to be releasing, where you're going to have a problem when you try to import those into QA or into production. We'll check all those references for you. We'll also make sure you're not downgrading by submitting a change that's actually going to take you back. You shouldn't overwrite newer changes with older changes by accident. You may also want to trigger build automations for other types of software outside of ABAP. If you have code that needs to be compiled and built, like JavaScript code for your front end, that can be triggered from this state. And then you can run change impact analysis. So Tricentis has Live Compare, which is, many of our customers are using that in an automated fashion to automatically, when you reach a certain state in your change process, those will go through the analysis. The reports will automatically get attached to your ticket, so you can see the status of those changes and make sure that you have enough testing to cover off those high-risk areas that were identified by the Live Compare application. And similarly, you can trigger automated testing to run so that you've captured any learnings from those automated tests before you progress further with your testing. And then as you're going to close to your import to production, you want to make sure that any digital signatures are triggered, and that if you have import scheduling rules, you want to enforce those before you do the imports. And then, of course, if you have transports that you want to synchronize between SAP and cloud-based systems, those could be cloud-based systems within SAP's realm, such as public cloud applications or just native cloud applications from SAP, or through BTP changes, anything that's on the BTP platform. You can use cloud TMS transports to synchronize with your ABAP changes so that everything gets released in one shot. Or it could even be a non-SAP change that you want to automate from the same work item. So you can have those user stories trigger automatically those updates into your other landscapes as well. If you have parallel landscapes, let's say you're doing maintenance, but you're also doing a project in parallel. Sometimes there could be multiple project streams. Maybe you have like a project going on, and then you maybe also have an upgrade and then another change that's kind of bigger than a breadbox. You need to put that into a project landscape. You can support those multiple change streams running in parallel. It's like an N+1, N+2 landscape in Jira. And maybe you have a different system like ServiceNow that you use to manage your ongoing maintenance changes. Of course, if that's the case, then ServiceNow is going to be making changes to your production landscape in parallel. And so we can track those items using ServiceNow, and we can also have automated retrofit capabilities. So those changes that you're making, they need to get fed back into your project. So when your projects go live, you don't actually regress in functionality. And so we have those capabilities covered in our tools as well to help you to manage multiple parallel landscapes. So we'll actually be talking about some of that in today's demo. Let's jump into a quick workflow of what Sajith is going to cover, and then I will turn it over to him. So to start off with, we're going to go through a simple movement of a transport starting from ECD, which is our development environment, into ECQ, and then eventually into ECP. That's the production landscape. So we're going to take those through. Then we're going to actually have our project N+1 landscape available to us as well. So we'll start with moving that TR from dev to QA to production. The next step, we'll show you how you would actually retrofit. This is an automated retrofit capability using a transport of copies to automatically publish those non-conflicting changes into your N+1 landscapes for both dev and QA, so everything remains in sync. So that'll be the first workflow. The second workflow, it's nice to work on changes one at a time. We'll also show you how you can have mass import of changes in your environment. So it could be that you have like a release, maybe you do a weekly release, or you're doing a big project release that may have multiple change requests in it. And within those, you could have also, it's a one-to-many relationship between those change requests and those transports. You can have multiple transports for each individual change request, and you can move them all in one shot. So multiple change requests, multiple transports moved all at one time. And this is a sort of a mass maintenance feature that allows you to be very efficient about the way that you're managing those changes. And similarly, we have the ability to do mass retrofits as well. So that is what we have on tap for you today. So it's going to be action-packed. Sajith, I will turn it over to you. Welcome, and you can introduce yourself and launch into the demo.
Thanks, Steve. Hello, everyone. Myself, Sajith Kanauj. I'm a solution architect at CoreALM. I also lead the application development team. So as Steve has mentioned, let's have a quick look at our TMS tool for directly managing the SAP transports from Jira. So I'm sharing my screen in here. Please, Steve, I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, you're good.
Okay. So this is our Jira instance, which we use for the demos. And this connector works. There are two parts for the connector. One part will be on the SAP side, which is our application plugin, which is in CoreALM landscape, which needs to be imported into your SAP system, wherein you want to have the integration from Jira. And the second part is on the Jira side, wherein we'll be providing a plugin which needs to be installed in your Jira instance. And once you deploy this plugin in Jira, you'll be able to see this under the applications deployed, and this is the SAP Transport Management tool. And you can see the details in here. We have different tabs within the plugin. We have connectivity, mapping, mass import, and logs section. So the connectivity is wherein you define the details of the landscape which you want to integrate with Jira. As you can see here, we already added a couple of landscapes in here, and this is a demo landscape that we are going to deal with today. So here you have the development system details maintained. Similar to that, you have the test environment details, production environment, and you also have the connectivity details. So this uses an HTTP connection from Jira to SAP, which will be calling a web service. And you can do the connection test. And in case if there is an issue with the connectivity, it will also be showing the details in here, what is the error. And you can, at any point in time, you can edit and update the details. And if you want to add an additional environment like a pre-production, or if you want to have an additional development system added, or even a new production system added, or to edit any of the existing instances, you can add it. So you'll have the option, select the environment you want to add and provide the details like this, the SID and the client, and then save. So depending on how many systems you have in your landscape, you'll be able to modify this configuration. So once you maintain the system details, as I mentioned, you can do the connectivity connection test, and you can maintain as many landscapes as you want. And the only prerequisite is that the system should be accessible from Jira. So it will be using an HTTPS port, and system has to be accessible from Jira, and you also need to have a system user or service user on the SAP side, which will be used for the integration. So now we have the landscape added and the connectivity is established. Everything looks good. We have ECD as the development system, ECQ as the test environment, and ECP is the production. And next step is to define the mapping. So as we know, we have multiple projects within Jira. You can select which all projects you want to integrate with SAP. So maybe not all the projects in Jira will be used for handling the SAP transports. So only those projects which you want to integrate, you can select the project and you can select which issue type you want to integrate. We have the flexibility to map any issue type. So if you have a custom issue type, that will also be listed in here. So that can also be selected for the mapping. And you can select which all landscapes you want to have this issue typed or this particular Jira project integrated to. So it also allows you for one-to-one mapping or one-to-many mapping. So in this example, the same Jira project, which is SAP TMS, and the issue type user story is mapped with multiple SAP landscapes in here. So TMD, ECD, TMQ. So all these are mapped in here. And if you just want to have one landscape, you can also do that. And the next step is to define, depending on your Jira workflow, what all actions should be possible against each status within Jira. So you can select in the drop down, you'll be able to see the statuses of your Jira issue type. And then here you have the different actions, what all are possible for the connector or for the tool. And in this, against to do status, you have the create transport request option. And when you have the Jira issue move to in progress, you'll be able to see create and import TOC, which is transport of copy. And in the same status, you have the option to release the TR, and you also have the option to import into the test environment. And when the Jira issue is moved to done status, or when it is complete, you have the option to import into production. So again, as I said, the workflow would be customized in your Jira environment, and depending on your workflow, the connector can well adapt to it. You can select any status and map any action against any status like this. So once you define the mapping, just save the mapping, and after that you're good to go. So here we have the mapping like this. In to do, you have the create transport, and in progress you have multiple options like create and import transport of copy, release TR, and import into test. And for the import into production option, you need to move Jira issue to done. So with that said, let me go ahead and create a new story. So this is the same project, SAP TMS. This work type is story, and I'll create a story within a demo. Sure, just making it up, and we'll fill all the mandatory fields. And as we know, Jira is an application used across the organization by both SAP and non-SAP teams. And within SAP TMS project itself, you might be probably having different issue types, both SAP and non-SAP. So if this particular story which we are going to create, if you want to have that considered as a SAP change or SAP related or SAP integrated story, there is a custom field which will be introduced as part of the plugin, which is SAP transportable change, and which you need to set to yes. So only if you set this value to yes, this will be considered an SAP transportable change, and you'll be seeing all the additional options. So let me set this to blank and create. And now the story is created. Let's see. And you can see this is a story and other fields are filled, and SAP transportable change is set to blank. It is not set to yes. So now if we set this SAP transportable change to yes, there's going to be an additional custom tab appearing under the activity tabs, which is called SAP transport. And then you will be seeing all the options for the transport in STMS integration within SAP. So I'm going to set this to yes. And let's reload the page. And you can see now the SAP transport tab is appearing. And if this was set to no, or it was blank, this SAP transport tab will not be there. And in that case, this would have been considered as a non-SAP work item type. So now we have this set to SAP transportable change, and we have the options as per the mapping. We have create TR, and these additional options is if you already have an existing transport request and you already have a existing Jira issue, you can do the coupling option, which means you don't have to directly create the transport request from here. Instead, you can already couple an existing transport request. That's why we use this couple option for. And if you have a transport request, you can also do the decoupling. And here you have other options like create TR and create task. This is for, so now you can see that it is grayed out because create task will be enabled only once you have an existing TR in here. So I'll go ahead and create a transport request. And here in the drop down, so depending on which all systems you mapped against this particular SAP TMS project, you'll be seeing all the development instances in the drop down. I'm going to select ECD001, which is our demo instance. And when you create a transport request, we have the options, whether it's a customizing or a workbench request. I'll select as a customizing request. And here you can define the owner, who's going to be the owner of the transport request. So we are also providing an option to fetch the user details from the corresponding development environment real time. So you can do a text search. So just give the first 4 letters of the user if you don't remember the exact user ID, and click on search. It will fetch the user details real time from the development environment. So I'm fetching my user details. Again, same way you can add task. Added a task also for my ID. This is my user. And we are also providing additional options like if you have a manual step to be performed, for example, for a transport request before importing or after importing. If you have any manual steps, whether, for example, you need to execute a report or you need to check some authorizations for the user or check some profiles or some jobs or anything. So you can select that option just like a reminder. So before the TR import, perform this manual step. So just making it up, execute test script and save. So which means before the TR import, you will be getting a pop-up to acknowledge you have performed the manual steps. You can also do that after the TR import or both. So I'm just making it up. So for the before TR import, you have a manual step to be performed. If you click on this icon, you'll be seeing the details of the manual step, and we'll create the transport request now. So this will make a call to SAP web service, and once the transport request is created, you will be seeing the details populated like this. So this is a transport request, and in the comments section, you'll also be able to see in case if there is an error during the transport creation or if it was success, all the information will also be visible under the comments section. So this is the transport request which is got created, and if you click on this, so we have a transport target group. So this also, our application also support transport groups, not just one SAP system as target. So if you have multiple transport systems and if you have a transport target group, that will also be supported. And this is the transport request which just got created, and all the other information. This is a customized request, and Sajid is the owner. This is the modifiable transport. It's not released yet, and the task details also. So let's go to the corresponding development environment and check the details of the transport. The same details what you see here, and you can also see the related Jira issue ID will also be visible in the transport request description. Now we have everything, and the next step is you make the change, the developers make the changes and capture this in this particular transport request and then release the task. And now for the interest of time, I'm not going to add any object in here. I'll just show the workflow, and this is going to be considered as an empty transport request, and still I'll release the task. And if you refresh, you can see the status of the task is released and the transport is still modifiable. And again, if you go to this create task option, so now you have the main task released and you want to make some additional changes. So you can still create a new task within the same transport request. Click on create task, and this time I'm going to select my colleague as the task owner, selecting Narayan, and add and create. So this should create a new task for Narayan within the same transport request. And you can see the new task is created, and this is modifiable. Let's check if the task details are visible under transport. and you can see this is a new task which is created. So now we have two tasks, one is released and one is not released under this particular transport request. What we'll do is, so as I mentioned earlier, you can also decouple this particular transport, which means the link from the Jira issue and the transport request should be removed. And later on, if you want to couple to any other Jira issue, you can do that as well using the couple option. And you can also create additional TR within the same issue if you want, and you can also create additional tasks as well. So we have only these options in to-do status as per the status mapping that we have configured. We'll do the next status change to the Jira issue. We'll move this to in progress. And we should also be able to see the action buttons are different for the in progress status. Let's refresh. It's taking a bit time. Okay. So now within in progress status, we have different statuses, different action options or buttons: create and import TOC, release TR, import TR, which is into the test environment. And you also have, in case if you have any error, like Steve mentioned in the feature list, you also have additional functionalities or advanced features similar to CHA, like raw system object log check or downgrade protection check. So in case if you have an object in this transport request, and if during the import or during the release, if the application comes across any CSOL or lock or a downgrade DGP issue, you will be given a warning or an error, and this option is to ignore that and do the release or re-import. So here, as it's an empty TR, we won't be able to, we won't be seeing these options, but this feature is also available within that. So what we'll do is we'll select this transport request, and I'll create a transport of copy first. So once I click on this, it should create a transport of copy with these objects within the transport request and import into the quality environment. And again, as I mentioned, there is a pop-up to acknowledge there are some manual steps to be performed. So execute test script, this is what we mentioned, and you need to acknowledge. Only then it will allow you to do the import. Click on save. And you can see in the comments that creation of transport of copies failed. There are unreleased tasks existing under the CR. So like I mentioned, in case if it's successful, any action, if success or failure, the details you should be able to see under this comments tab. So we have one task which is not released, and without releasing all the tasks, SAP won't allow you to create a transport of copy. So let's release this particular task and retry. So refresh here to check if the status is reflecting. Now both the tasks are released, and click on create and import TOC again. Acknowledge the pre-step. And you can see the TOC is created, released, and in the comments you should be able to see if the import is successful. You can see import of TOC into ECQ. This is a test environment initiated, and pre-import activities are confirmed, and import is successful. All the information is available in the comments section. Let's go to the ECQ system. Refresh. And you can see ECQ, the TOC from the original transport request, the same description you can see here, and the import is successful. So now we have released, created the transport of copy and imported into the target environment. And if, as I mentioned, if there is an error, that information will also be visible within Jira. The next step is to release the original transport request and import the original transport request into the test environment. Click on release TR, And once the TR is released, you can see the status. It's released. Let's check in Jira. It's taking a bit longer to update. All right. You can see the status is released. The transport request is released, and in the comments you can see during a transport request release, it will also be checking cross-system object lock, cross-object reference, sequence check, and downgrade protection, all those information. And in case if there is any error, the details with the object details will also be visible under the comment section. Now the transport request is released, and next step is to import into the test environment. Click on import TR, and again you'll be prompted to acknowledge the manual import steps before the import, and save. And similar to SAP, when you click on an import transport request, you'll have different U modes or options. So select the ones you want. I just leave those blank and click on import. So this should make a call to SAP and trigger the import into the target environment, which is ECQ of the original transport request. And here also you can see which was the last imported system, and you can see the import is successful here. Let's go to the comment, import of TR. This comments in the comment section, pre-import activities are confirmed, and all the other checks like downgrade protection, CSOL, cross-system object lock, and everything is there. And let's go to ECQ and see the status. You can see the import is successful. This is the status, and return code is 0. In here also you have the information which all imports are completed. ECQ is imported, ECD it was exported where it was released, and again all the other information is available. And for importing into the production environment, as per the mapping, we need to move it to the next status in Jira, which is done status. Move to done. Let me refresh. And in this, we do not have much of the options mapped, but just import into the production environment. And in case if there is any error, you can do the retry of the import after ignoring the errors. Now click on import. I selected the transport request and import TR. Same way before the production import, also you need to acknowledge the pre-import steps and save. Select the options you want to choose and then click on import. And this should trigger the import into the ECP or production environment. Scroll down, you can see this is the transport request which was added to the buffer. And if you refresh, you should also be able to see the import status, that import is successful. And here also you can see ECP imported. This is the last imported system, ECP, and this is the timestamp. And in the comments also you can see import of TR into ECP system client 001 is initiated, 3 import steps confirmed, CO cross object reference, sequence check, DGP, and everything was successful. No issues reported. And that completes the cycle of the workflow of the Jira of this particular transport request. And if you want to have an additional transport request created, you need to create a new story and create a new transport request in there. So that's how you import a single story or a single transport request using the tool. And as Steve mentioned, we also have additional options for importing multiple transport requests shown here. So we already saw the connectivity tab and mapping tab. And here is a mass import option. Here you can select the Jira project in which you want to select the stories. So like here, you can select which all projects you want to select. And I selected SAP TMS project, which we have, and select the issue type. And here we are providing multiple options for the selection. So you can select based on a particular field, like you have multiple options to select. If you want to add a custom field in here, that is also possible. So you can select the field and provide the corresponding value. For some example, summary, if you want to select a webinar, and you can select based on that. Or if you have a specific text for all the transport requests, you can do that. Or if you can select based on a particular sprint. if you want to do a mass import based on sprint 1 or sprint 2, sprint 3, you can do that. You also have the option to do the import based on the last imported system. So if you want to select all the transport requests which are moved to ECQ 001, then you can do the search and select all the transport requests and click on mass import option. So this feature is also available. And if you want to add additional custom fields for the selection, like a version, or if you have a separate project field, or if you have a separate landscape field, all those can be selected for the filtering criteria. And here we also have the option to see the logs. So in case if there is any issue with the creation of transport request or creation of task or release of transport request, all this information are logged in here. You can see the status, whether success or failure. You can filter by what type of action is logged, and you can also see whether it's pending, success or failure. And in case if it's failure, you'll be able to see the information also in here. And if for the failed entries, you also have the retry option. So in case if you have failed entry, you'll also be able to do the selection and do a retry. So switch to fail, and you see the action reprocess. If you reprocess this, it will show it was reprocessed and successful, and you can see the retry count in here under retry count tab. So this is on a high level with the basic functionalities with this tool support. As Steve mentioned, we also have the support for retrofit, mass retrofit, and additional options as well. I hope this demo was clear to give you a fair idea about how the tool works. And if you have any questions, you can post in the chat.
Thank you, Sajith. We do have some questions already coming in. If you have questions that you haven't let us know about, please do put them in the chat. Yeah, but we can start into some questions. Thanks. It was a great demo. I guess just as an overview for people, we consider this to be like a way of actually embedding a more of an agile process for SAP management. And the reason for that, I know we got into a lot of technical details on how to move transports, but of course you have to deal with transports when it comes to SAP. This, though, allows you to do that directly from your Jira tool, which is probably your Agile project management tool. That's why you are here. And so this allows you to sort of have a more of an Agile process, but still get the benefit of those, SAP Transport Management capabilities without having to leave your screen. So some questions that did come in. The first one, can we define a release schedule for each transport, such as like emergency transports should be released in the daily window, regular transports should be released, let's say on a monthly release cycle. I believe that those would go through the imports, or you would buffer those transports, and then you would have a job that's running that would handle those scheduling. Sajith, maybe you can explain how that would work.
Yeah, that's true. So we have the option, note for the release, yes, for specific releases or specific types. When you do the mass import, like I showed in the screen, when you do the mass import, and you'll have the option in the pop-up whether you want to schedule it immediately or if you want to schedule it for a later period of time, maybe just after the office hours. You'll have that flexibility when you do the mass import.
Perfect. That's great. Okay, and then next question was handling the release of mass transports from different projects. I think you showed how that works. This is very flexible. There's lots of different search criteria. You can do it by the specific system. You can do it by project field. You can do it by sprint, or whatever other data you want to use within your Jira environment, whether that's standard Jira screens or custom. So if you have questions on that, further questions on that, please do let us know. I think we did walk through that a little bit. Sajith, anything else you would want to add? I think it was pretty well clear.
Yeah, that's right, Steve. Yeah, you covered it all. So you have the option to filter it based on, even you can select multiple projects for the mass import, or within the project you can select multiple sprints. So that flexibility is there in the option.
Okay, and when you do that, it does the transport analysis en masse, so it'll actually look for any conflicts within that group of transports that you've designated. Is that correct?
Exactly. And for all those transport requests, whatever mass import you did, you will also be able to see the details in the log section
Right.
of all the transport
Perfect.
requests.
Okay, perfect. And then the next question was around retrofitting of transports. We didn't demonstrate that today, but definitely that is possible. You can actually, in fact, have multiple parallel retrofit landscapes, and you can be doing retrofit. Today, we're doing automated retrofit for green transports, so those are non-conflicting transports. Sujit, correct?
That's correct, Chief. Yes. So we didn't show that as part of the demo due to the limited time that we have, but probably we can try to include that in the next demo as well. But we do have the option to retrofit into multiple parallel landscapes, not just one N+1. You can also have as many parallel landscapes if you want, and you can retrofit into all those. And you also have the option to do the mass retrofit as well.
And we do that analysis on those retrofits before you go ahead and execute anything to make sure there are no conflicts. And then it'll report based on the status of the retrofit. If there's no conflict, it'll mark it as green, and then you can automate those retrofits from that point. Anything else would be marked as a yellow or a red. May require some manual actions before you do those retrofits, but we have automated retrofits for non-conflicting changes. So that pretty much covers what we wanted to look at for today. And what I would suggest, if you still have questions that you would like to have answered, or if you'd like to get a personalized demonstration, or if you happen to be watching on the recording, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. The easiest way to get a hold of us is you can scan the barcode on your screen, of course, that'll take you to our website, or you can just go to CoreALM.com. If you look in the top right-hand corner of your screen, there should be a Talk to an Expert button. You can click on that and you can fill out the form, and that will come to us. We can get in touch with you and we can schedule a customized, tailored demonstration that sort of fits your specific requirements, make sure we cover all of those. Please do go to our resources page. The barcode on the screen will actually take you there. This is where we list future topics for upcoming webinars, and you can subscribe to those. If you can't make any of those dates, you can always just register and we'll send you the recording, as we will after today for anybody that registered for today's webinar. And of course, we also have our LinkedIn newsletter. We have a weekly newsletter that goes out that's called the SAP ALM Navigator. And if you go to the CoreALM LinkedIn page, then you can actually get on that page, you see our newsletter. You can subscribe to that newsletter, and then you'll get updates for future articles that cover a variety of topics. We've covered CI/CD. We've covered AI. We're just about to release an SAP Rise article, and lots of interesting topics that might be of interest to you. Thanks very much for coming today. Thank you, Sujit, for our demonstration and for walking us through everything. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day.